Be Frank Network. Content on this production is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor is it intended to substitute medical treatment or diagnosis. Seek medical help if you believe that you are suffering from a mental illness or are a threat to yourself or others. By using any or all of the information provided, you do so at your own risk. Any application of the material is at the listener's discretion and is his or her sole responsibility.
Hey everybody, Doc Brian here. So many times we go through life and things just really don't seem to go our way. And there are even points and times in our lives where it just seems like all hope is gone. But I want to encourage you today, know that there is always hope. There's always something to hold on to. Grab hold and lean into your support system. Know that they are there and wanting the best for you. And if you don't feel like they want the best for you or they're not encouraging you, feel free to remove them from your circle of support and find people who have your best interest in mind, and do not give up hope. Everybody, Doc Brian here, and welcome to Doc Talks, where we talk about people's troubles, trials, tribulations, and hopefully triumphs in life. As you may remember on one of our last podcasts, we talked a little bit about physician-assisted suicide, and there's a lot of controversial thoughts about what that really looks like and what that really means, not only for the person who has the terminal illness, but for the families and friends of those people. And you know, it's just a difficult topic to approach, and we all have different ideas and responsibilities when it comes to that. I have with me today JJ Singleton, and JJ, I appreciate, first of all, you being here with us today.
Honored to be here.
So JJ, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family background and dynamic.
I'm from a small town about 20 minutes from Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains.
What's the name of that town? Because I was in North Carolina for several years.
Canton, North Carolina. We are famous for a paper mill.
I know exactly where you're at. Yeah,
that's born and raised here in a little community called Bethel, which is about a few miles away from Canton. So grew up in a town with probably about 750 people, and Asheville's the big city to me.
Yeah, the hilly city, if I remember correct. Yeah. Now, Asheville's where the Biltmore House is, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. Many school field trips were spent at the Biltmore House.
Yeah. So do you have brothers, sisters?
I have one older sister, two younger brothers, a half brother, and then a whole bunch of step siblings.
Yeah. So are you married? Have kids?
I'm not. I'm single and no kids. I'm an uncle of 6, though. So those are pretty much what I figure my kids will.
Yeah. And how old are you again?
I am 34 now. I'll be 35 in 2 months.
Okay. All right. I saw you on TikTok, and you were talking about your diagnosis of cancer and how you had colon cancer or have colon cancer, and the treatments were going well, and then you found that cancer had spread. Can you tell us a little bit about how you come to know that there was an issue and what that diagnosis first was, how that came about?
Yeah, in 2015, I was getting back into shape. I was a college athlete. I played college football at a small school for 2 years, and then I got hurt, too many concussions, kind of let my body go, was, the typical early 20-something, just more into having fun than worrying about taking care of my body. So 2015, I started CrossFit, working out, diet, was getting in shape, and I started feeling a throbbing in my abdomen. Typical 27-year-old, it's nothing. I don't need the doctor. I'm not wanting money took out of my paycheck for health insurance. I'm single. I don't need that. Well, I ignored it, and by the time September 4th came around, you could see the tumor throbbing through my skin. And my mom, I was turning gray and losing weight. So my mom made me go to the doctor. And it turns out I had a mass in my colon, which was about 98% blocked. And as soon as they said it had a mass and it's most likely cancer, all the little dots that symptoms I've been dealing with for the last months made sense. Mm-hmm. So within a week, I had a colonoscopy, diagnosed with cancer and was in surgery.
And what emotion was that like, knowing all of this was just transpiring so fast?
Yeah, it was a lot of numbness, and like I had my family around, and they were the ones that were more asking questions, what's going on? I was just like pretty much living in a daze at that point. I was like, I'm 27. At that point, I thought colon cancer was my grandpa's cancer, like old man cancer. I was like, nobody my age gets colon cancer.
Sure.
It's just a haze kind of going through those weeks when I look back on it now.
Yeah. And you mentioned, your family was there that asked a lot of questions. How would that have been like had you not had that support system?
I have no clue how I would have made it through. Like, I've been growing in the colon cancer community. There's people I meet that don't have that support. And it just blows my mind, because I was like, I relied on them so much. They took me to doctor appointments when I couldn't drive. They gave me a place to stay when I needed, because I was living with one of my best friends and my younger brother who were in their early 20s, and not the best age to have somebody going through chemo and cancer living in there. So they gave me a place to stay, and they just were there doing everything for me. So
yeah.
At that point, my mental health was not good. So them being there to get me through that was everything.
Of course, being in oncology during that period of time, was there ever a mental health counselor that worked specifically in oncology that you had access to?
I had access to one, but at that point, the typical, 27-year-old guy raised up was not like mental health. I was like, nope, I can handle it all. I do not want to talk about it. And it took me years before I was able to see a therapist and talk about it. And that is one thing, like, I try now to break that stigma, because it about ended it was rough going there for a while.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they get this idea, and there is this stigma that when you see a mental health counselor, it's because there's something wrong with you. You're not strong enough. You're not, and those things. And, I really try to emphasize that your mental health is your physical health. We wouldn't deny that we had high blood pressure. It's there in front of us. And so when it comes to mental health, a lot of times we want to go into denial about, is this really something wrong with me? Is it my environment? And whatever it is, it's okay to seek mental health treatment.
100%. It's that mental health, it affects all the other parts of the life, physical health, the emotional, everything.
Absolutely. So from then you had a scope, you were diagnosed with cancer, you had surgery. What was that first surgery like?
It was a massive surgery. The tumor, I was kind of lucky. It was in a spot where I did not have to have an ostomy bag or anything. They were able to reconnect it, but my body did not recover well. So I ended up spending 17 days in the hospital, having to have an extra emergency surgery. But they ended up removing 80% of my colon and 36 inches of my small intestine because the tumor was so big. But I didn't have any cancer in my lymph nodes at that time. So there was bright spots.
Sure. So at this point, having that much of your colon, your bowel, small intestine removed, do you have an ostomy bag now?
I do not. They were able to reconnect it, and it's enough to where I get the nutrients I need. I just have to eat a lot more smaller meals than regular, because everything goes through me so much quicker, and have to plan my days around that a lot more than normal people.
Sure. Yeah. My wife had ulcerative colitis. So she, from about 4 inches of her small intestine down, is all false. So she has a J pouch, which I'm sure is probably what you have. And like you said, when she's got to go to the bathroom, there's none of this, okay, the next exit we can stop. She's got to go.
Yeah.
And so that brings a whole new dynamic into your life of having literally, when you say planning, you literally have to plan and know what to eat or what not to eat, and making sure that there's a bathroom close by.
Yeah, I used to just love, being random, like waking up, me and some friends wanted to go on a trip, you could go. But now I'm like, I can't be in the car that much because I did not plan for it. And I ate these foods yesterday, and I was like, this will be a 10-minute, every 10 minutes we're pulling off on the side of the road.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what type of therapy, as far as oncology wise, were you doing at that point to try to seek remission?
Since I was so young, I went down to the Duke Cancer Center, and they thought it was a good idea to just do the baseline, what most people do at colon cancer. It was a chemo called Folfox, 12 rounds of it. And they thought since they were able to remove the tumor, have clear margins, they were like, this should be good, clear up any random cells. And, after that, we move on, hopefully NED into remission.
So their thought process, if I'm understanding correctly, was we got all that we could see of cancer out. So now you're going to do these 12 rounds of chemo just as a catch-all and in case we miss something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So after those 12 rounds of chemo, what happened?
I made it about 6 weeks, and I had my follow-up colonoscopy. Went in, it was clean, so I was happy. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night with that same throbbing in my abdomen again. So this time, I was at the doctor about 6:15 in the morning waiting on them to get there. It was like, something's not right. Didn't know if it was like scar tissue breaking up from my surgeries or whatever. That day went, had another scan. A few days later, it came back and showed there was a mass in my abdominal wall. So next we went, biopsy, more scans, visit to Duke, everything. And it turns out the cancer had spread to my abdominal wall. And now this time it had spread into lymph nodes throughout my body.
And so when you say it was in your abdominal wall, that of course means it metastasized or it moved there. But was it a tumor? Or was it just throughout the abdominal wall?
There was a mass. There's one major mass in my abdominal wall, and then there's other spots that on a PET scan lit up. So there was other cells all throughout the abdominal wall, but there was one big mass, and it was right around where the stomach emptied into the intestines, throughout that area of the abdominal wall.
Yeah, and so with it being throughout, it's not like you can take out your abdomen. You kind of have to have that.
There was no radiation because in the abdominal wall, the cancer, it just moves. I've never had other than the first colon cancer, I've never had it in a solid organ where they could just go in and cut it out. It's just a fluid.
Right. So at that point, I guess the diagnosis became terminal.
Terminal and incurable because of it being resistant to the mainline chemo.
Okay. So what was the plan there at that point? Was it palliative care to just try to keep you comfortable, or did they continue with treatments?
Yeah, we decided that we wanted to see if other chemos that acted a little different would work because it was spreading so much, and I wasn't ready to die yet. So we started down the list of different chemos. I went to something called FOLFIRI. Then I combined the other two with that. The next one after that failed. And I can't remember the last one that I tried names. Medical people like to have 15-syllable words for these drugs,
yeah,
but
absolutely. That's why in mental health we have so many acronyms.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do in oncology as well. So are you currently on chemotherapy?
I am on a immunotherapy-based drug because all the other chemos failed, and I started a clinical trial, which was this immunotherapy drug. But as I go, spots pop up and go away, and they will add a certain side chemo drug to me that I'll be on for 4 or 6 months at a time until the next scan shows improvement. And then I can get off of it until something else pops up.
Right. So for the benefit of the listeners, chemotherapy targets the actual tumor or cancer to try to eradicate it. Immunotherapy is trying to trick your brain into getting rid of it or getting an autoimmune response to not allow it to grow. Is that a good understanding?
Yeah, the immunotherapy I'm on, everybody has these things called T cells, mm-hmm. But your immune system blocks them from attacking because they could attack anything in your body, your organs or anything. This drug takes that block away and it allows them to attack the cancer. So my body pretty much thinks I'm really, really sick 24/7 every day. So it's constantly attacking the cancer to keep it from spreading.
And so how does that affect your everyday life as far as energy, ability to do the things that you want to do?
It is a lot different from the chemo, because the chemo was like a all of a sudden, all at one time punch. This has been, I've been on it for over 5 years now, and it's kind of steadily grown. Like the fatigue, every couple months, I'll be like, I'm not able to do what I was able to do a few months ago. So I have to adjust lifestyle like that. I have horrible mouth sores. That is one of the big side effects from this that affect me worse than most people. So I have like the cracked lips, sores all down through my throat, and then just the appetite, taste of food. Pretty much eating's my least favorite thing to do right now.
Yeah.
But
so you probably have what they call licus pleuris in your mouth. They look like kind of like canker sores or blisters, but that's not what it is.
And oral mucitis. I can't pronounce. I do stuff for them every year on that day, awareness day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that fissured tongue. Like at the dentist when they do the little water to the air to dry off your gums, mine will start bleeding when they do that.
Yeah, which is a result of the immunotherapy.
Yeah,
right.
So it's kind of got a way that you ought to be like have a very sensitive mouth and deal with all those, but it's keeping me alive. So
yeah,
I can handle that.
Yeah. So what is eating like? Do you have to make sure you eat soft foods?
I do. And then I just found out a few weeks ago that through all my chemo and stuff, my body's developed the celiac disease, so allergic to gluten. So now I'm trying to learn on new foods that I can eat, but I'll find one food that tastes good and don't upset my stomach, and I pretty much eat it all the time until it changes.
Yeah.
So right now it's a lot of oatmeal.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that can taste good and it don't make me sick. So,
and there's several different flavors. So
yeah, and then I can add some like fruit, like the bananas to get the nutrients and stuff. Add a little protein like powder to help, try to keep my weight up. So it's one of the better foods that I've enjoyed here.
Yeah. And so without having a bowel or colon, that's where you get your iron from.
Yes.
And iron is such a major thing, not with just in our mental health, but in our bodies to produce blood. So how are you getting that iron intake?
I've actually had quite a few iron infusions. Right now, I had my last one in March. I had one of the big, 10-hour iron infusions. At certain times, if it's not so low, they'll do the quicker ones where it's like an hour or two. But this was like the double bag it looked like rust going into my body.
Mm-hmm. And it smells terrible.
Yeah. And I tell people, you have that, you taste blood and you have that iron taste in your mouth, times that by about 1,000. And that's what I had for weeks after that.
Yeah. And so, another thing that directly relating to mental health is that 95% of your serotonin is produced and stored in your large intestine, which is where, ironically, we get the term to trust your gut.
Yeah.
And so I could only assume that maybe you are on some type of mental health drug to regulate serotonin.
Yeah, I'm on quite a few different ones, a lot to regulate the anxiety, the ups and downs, kind of just level me out.
Yeah.
I never had anxiety before all of this. And now if I don't take the medicine and go to my therapist and stuff, I can get down in some pretty dark holes.
Mm-hmm. So, we know that serotonin is used to treat depression, obsessive compulsive disorders, panic attacks, post-traumatic stress, which I can only assume you have that, due to.
Yeah, there's times I wake up in the middle of the night and I can still feel like the tubes coming out of me from my hospital stays and smell that hospital smell and look over in the bed. Looks like I dropped a cup of water in there because I was sweating so much.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned earlier that you'll go a period of time and then you'll say, okay, I'm not able to do what I used to do 5 or 6 months. Yeah. When you adjust things, does that make it better, or do you just have to come to the realization that I'm not going to be able to do those things?
Throughout the years, I've accepted coming to that realization where, all right, it don't make it better. This is just my new life until it changes again. earlier, I wanted to, change it to make it better, to still get all the same satisfaction and gratification from life. But throughout, a lot of failures and stuff to do that, realizing that my life is going to change every time that happens. And I just physically and mentally can't do what I used to. So it's been a journey to accept that. And most days I do, some days I don't. So it's just a kind of a lot of fluid, like, acceptance.
And so how do you process that change that, okay, this is going to be different now?
Right now it is quite a few sessions with my therapist, just talking through everything. And here lately, a lot of it goes back. It's not necessarily that I have to process my life changing. It's just processing all the results because of that. Like me seeing other people my age doing all this and not getting depressed, and realizing that even though my life's changed and different, I'm still accomplishing things in my own realm, not comparing and not contrasting so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's important for us to do even outside of a diagnosis, that we understand that, hey, we should not compare ourselves to others, because we don't know what they're dealing with in their life.
And even more so now with social media and stuff, because a lot of times you only see the highlights of people's lives and not what they go through on the normal daily basis.
Sure. So through all of this, have you ever gotten to a point of where you were suicidal?
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. It was the first time was right at the end of 2016. Like, all my treatments had failed. I was waiting to get on the clinical trial. And I was just like, I was in such pain. My day consisted of laying on a heat pad, taking as hot a shower as I could to, like, get the pain from my abdomen and back, and taking the pain medicine I was given just to be able to sleep for 30 minutes until it woke me up. And I was just like, this life is not worth it. I literally was like, I'm working way too hard for no joy, no satisfaction. So there was a time where I almost got to where I was like, I'm about to, just write that note and tell everybody this is why I did it.
Yeah. And so what kept you from doing that?
Luckily, I got a phone call from, at that point, I wasn't very open with my story, but I met a guy online, and he was going through the exact same stuff. And me and he called me at the night where I was probably at my lowest, and we had like a 4-hour conversation. Nothing to do about that, not much even to do about cancer, but it just got me through that night. And then the next day, I actually ended up going to the hospital where I spent the next month, but I started the clinical trial. So it was meant to be, where it postponed what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. And then events happened to where life changed.
Yeah. So what is your prognosis now as far as life expectancy?
It's kind of up in the air. Like, the drug that I'm on, as long as it keeps working, they said I could, they don't know how long I could live. So pretty much I live, about 3 to 4 months stretches at a time, because that's when I get my scans. Because you never know, that one scan, it can be like, oh, the cancer's back, treatment's quit working, and we don't know if one's going to start working. So I don't really have a long outlook, but I hope to. So just keep every 4-month increments.
Yeah. And so, when we think about terminal illness, we begin to think about legacy. Mm-hmm. and what the world is going to remember us for when we're not here any longer. What kind of things are you doing to try to build that legacy?
Here in the last 2 years, I really got into advocacy, and my path is not into like the discussing treatment plans with people and stuff. It's about like the mental health and the acceptance of what this life is, and to help people deal with that part of it. So hopefully my legacy is just somebody that helps break the stigma around talking about colon cancer. People don't like talking about your colon.
Yeah.
Bowel habit.
Yeah.
And then especially like with mental health.
Yeah. And I know so many people, especially men, that are like, I'm not going to go get a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to go get a prostate exam. that's not for me. And even my dad, my grandfather died of complications due to prostate cancer. And my dad's like, no, I'm not getting that done. Why? And he said, well, if I'm going to die from it, I'd rather it just happen than have to go through all and I'm going, that makes no logical sense at all.
I've had uncles, brothers, they don't want to get the colonoscopy and stuff. And I'm like, y'all just come and sit with me during a chemo treatment, or come and sit at my house after a chemo treatment and see what you will be going through. And then I just tell them that, like a colonoscopy, you get a day and a half off work and they give you some really cool drugs that make you feel really good for a while.
Yeah.
It's like
the worst part about a colonoscopy is the prep.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then after you do that, the next meal after, you expel all the gas and your stomach starts feeling better, is one of the better meals that you'll ever eat, because you're completely cleansed.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of changing the subject here, we had a gentleman on our podcast here about a month ago who has a terminal diagnosis, an autoimmune disease, and he wants to have medically assisted suicide. Like, that's his goal, but in his state, it's not allowed. Living with a terminal illness, how do you feel about physician-assisted suicide?
It is a very complicated subject that I think there can be no baseline, like broad spectrum, like law or decision, because it's so individually specific. You got to take into account like what you're going through, the prognosis, the mental health of the patient. But there is times like where, they tell you, like, if this clinical trial wouldn't have worked, I'd have went through months of hell going through like severe pain, or I'd just been like a zombie because I had to have so much pain medication. And I don't want to live like that. Like, if there's no hope or nothing, and I know people will always be like, there's always hope. And I understand that, because I was on my last option that did work. Mm-hmm. But there comes a point in time where there's only so much that you mentally and physically can handle.
And that's why it's so important to be so open and honest about the struggles that you're dealing with and going through.
Yeah. And like I said, like people like that are at that point and have to deal with so much, like physical pain is one thing, and everybody can deal with a different amount of pain. But when it's constant and growing every day seems like a year in like length, because the pain never quits. You never have relief, and it can do some really crazy things to your mind.
Yeah. Chronic pain is a very common cause of depression. And a lot of times people get into this depression and they think, well, I'm sleeping more, I don't feel good, it must be from the pain medication. And they just look past the mental health aspect until they're to a point of no return.
Yeah.
Or they continue to take pain medicine to the point of where they take too much and overdose.
Yeah.
Being someone living with this terminal illness, what would you say to others that may be facing this prognosis?
Don't take it all on yourself. Be open with it. And I know that is a complicated subject, because everybody's at a different stage of acceptance of how they are mentally. But don't be afraid to go and talk to a professional or talk to somebody, anybody, even if it's expressing anger, sadness. Just get those emotions out to where that can clear up your mind a little bit to talk about the underlying and main issues. Because the more you push those down and ignore them, the more complicated they are when they do eventually explode.
Yeah. And so it's so important to go ahead and take that mental health availability that you accept that for what it is.
Definitely.
Well, JJ, thank you for being here with us today on Doc Talks. And I know this is not an easy topic to talk about, so I appreciate your willingness to do that today.
I appreciate y'all having me. And sometimes the not easy topics are the most important that we need to. And I'm comfortable talking about it, so I'm going to keep doing it, even though it does bring up a lot of emotions.
Yeah, it does. So where could our followers or listeners find you at if they wanted to hear more about your story?
They can search me on Facebook, JJ Singleton. I'm on the TikTok. I can't even remember my user account name there. But Instagram is where I do a lot of like reels and posts, and it is JJ5145 on Instagram. That's where I post most of my story and like my cancer journey.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure to include all of those links in the description of this podcast so our listeners can find you. And I just want to tell you that your story is one of hope.
Well, thank you.
To not give up. And you're a strong man. You're a strong man, and just keep pushing forward.
Always.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to Doc Talks today. Of course, I'm Doc Brian. You can find me at thedocbrian.com. All of my social media links are there. Also, you can call in or text us at 910-777-7239. That's 910-777-7239. Of course, Doc Talks is a part of the Be Frank Network. You can check out all of our podcasts there at befranknetwork.com. Thank you so much for listening today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Goodbye.